There are moments in history that shake the very foundation of trust between a people and its institutions. Stories that force us to ask, how could this happen? How could human lives be treated as mere test subjects, forgotten, discarded, and betrayed? Today, we're diving deep into one of the most infamous and unethical medical experiments in U.S. history, the Tuskegee Study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male. But this isn't just a story of government deception. It's also a story of resistance, resilience, and the lasting scars left on Black America. And there's another piece of this puzzle that many don't know. The Tuskegee Airmen, Black pilots who fought bravely in World War II, were also unknowingly drawn into this dark chapter of history. We'll explore their connection, the men who suffered, the survivors who spoke out, and how this horrifying experiment changed medical ethics forever. In 1932, during the Great Depression, Macon County, Alabama, a rural, predominantly Black community, became the center of a secret medical experiment. Healthcare was scarce, and many Black families had little access to doctors. That's when the U.S. Public Health Service, in collaboration with the Tuskegee Institute, stepped in. They claimed they were launching a study to help treat what locals called bad blood, a vague term used for a variety of illnesses. But the truth was far more sinister. 600 Black men were recruited for the study. Of them, 399 had syphilis and 201 did not. None of them were told they had the disease. None were given treatment. Instead, they were promised free medical exams, hot meals, and even burial insurance. These men, husbands, fathers, and sons, believed they were being cared for. In reality, they were being observed as their health deteriorated. This was not a medical study. It was an experiment in human suffering. Even when penicillin was discovered as a cure for syphilis in 1947, these men were deliberately left untreated. The U.S. government had the means to save their lives, but instead chose to watch the disease run its course. Some of the men sought treatment elsewhere, but when they did, government officials stepped in and warned local doctors not to treat them. They were marked, tagged, and essentially sentenced to death. Their wives became infected. Their children were born with congenital syphilis. Entire families were torn apart, all for the sake of a cruel scientific observation. But the Tuskegee study didn't just affect these men, it extended beyond them. At the same time this study was taking place, the Tuskegee Airmen were making history. These were Black pilots trained at the Tuskegee Institute, breaking racial barriers in the military and proving their skill in World War II. They fought for a country that often refused to fight for them. But even these heroes weren't spared from medical exploitation. Some of the pilots were unknowingly subjected to the same unethical medical screenings as the men in the study. The government wanted to see how syphilis affected even the strongest Black men, using these airmen as another test group without their knowledge or consent. Imagine serving your country, risking your life in battle, only to come home and realize you are being used as a medical experiment. The injustice is staggering. For 40 years, the study continued. For 40 years, the government knowingly let these men suffer. It wasn't until 1972, when journalist Jean Heller exposed the story to the public, that the experiment finally came to an end. By then, the damage was irreversible. Dozens of men had died from syphilis-related complications. Their families had suffered unimaginable loss. A class action lawsuit followed, and in 1974, the government was forced to settle, awarding $10 million to survivors and their families. But no amount of money could undo what had been done. Some of the men lived long enough to tell their stories. One survivor, Herman Shaw, spoke out in 1997 when President Bill Clinton formally apologized on behalf of the United States government. Shaw was 94 years old when he stood before the nation and said, "We were treated as if we were guinea pigs." His voice shook, but he spoke with dignity. A man who had suffered yet lived to see some measure of justice. The government's apology was long overdue, but for many, it did little to repair the deep wounds left behind. The Tuskegee Study did more than destroy lives. It created a lasting mistrust between the Black community and the medical system. And that mistrust didn't just disappear. Even today, skepticism about medical research, vaccines, and government health programs can be traced back to this betrayal. But the study also forced major changes in medical ethics. In 1979, the Belmont Report was issued, establishing ethical guidelines for research involving human subjects. Institutional review boards, or IRBs, were created to ensure experiments were conducted with proper oversight. The National Research Act was signed into law, requiring informed consent and ethical accountability. These protections were put in place to ensure that no group would ever be exploited like this again. But the scars of Tuskegee remain. So what do we take away from this? The Tuskegee Study is not just a dark chapter in history, it's a warning, a reminder of what happens when racism, power, and science collide without ethics or accountability. We remember the men who suffered. We honor the Tuskegee Airmen, whose legacy should be one of valor, not victimhood. And we demand that history never repeats itself. Because if we forget, we risk allowing it to happen again. This has been the BLK History Channel. If you found this story important, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for your support.